Hello, everyone. I'm Ozzy Jones, and welcome to the Onyx Clinic. We are a learning and sharing space, offering valuable education and evidence-based methods to help you effectively navigate the healthcare system. Our goal is to empower you to advocate confidently for yourself and your loved ones. For Black History Month, we've partnered with SAC to pause and highlight Black-owned speech, language, and audiology practitioners who own their own businesses. Today, the Onyx Clinic would like to welcome Cindy Harrison. Cindy is the president and CEO of ACT Learning Center and Communicare Therapy, located in Ottawa, and Kmart Rehabilitation, located in Kingston, Ontario. She is an SLP by trade who brings over 37 years of clinical experience with an emphasis in both pediatric and adult assessment and intervention. Cindy, welcome.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
We are so happy to have you today. Now, I'm going to ask you, Cindy, if you can begin by I gave a brief introduction, but if you can introduce yourself to our viewers and tell us a bit about you and your work.
Sure. So I'd like to say that I got my degree in speech pathology when I was 5. The 37 years kind of gave me a little bit of pause. But way back when, I had my first job at a pediatric hospital. And it was filled with really nice people, but I just knew that following, this protocol, you must do that protocol, you have this many minutes. It just didn't feel right to me. So I knew that I wanted to do something a little bit different. I moved to home and community care, working in the schools, and that's where I met my business partner, who's also a speech pathologist. And I remember being called to a town hall where the vice president of the hospital at the time said that the hospital was going to become high tech. Well, speech pathology isn't high tech, and tertiary, and we're really not tertiary care. So my business partner and I said, I think we're going to lose our jobs. And in fact, the contract was cut. We approached the funder and said, well, we'd like to do it. And they said, well, that's all well and good, but there's a competitive process in place, so you'll have to take part in that. So we did, and that was in 1992. And our first practice, Communicare, was born. And so Communicare started with about 7 or 8 people in my business partner's basement. And we grew, fast forward to today, we're over 100 clinicians working in the home and community care space.
Oh,
And in 2000, we had the opportunity to purchase a business in Kingston. Well, it was actually in Kingston and in Ottawa at the time, and called Kmart Rehabilitation, which is also in the home and community care space. And at the time was also doing some pediatric work in the schools. And so Kmart is another probably 75 staff members. And then in 2019, we decided that we would start ACT Learning Center because we felt that there was a need for neurodivergent individuals, most of whom identify as autistic or have a diagnosis of autism spectrum disorder. And we started ACT in 2019 with 5 clinicians, and we're now about 130.
wow.
So I would say more than 300 across the 3 companies. So it's been a pretty incredible journey with its ups and downs and twists and turns, but I feel very blessed to be able to do what I do.
That is fantastic and absolutely phenomenal. I'm in awe. I think it's fantastic. And there's so many more questions that I have, with regards to, how you grew, a business from 7 to 100 plus in one instance. And then, in these other areas, I mean, you've had tremendous success, it sounds like, and I'm sure a huge impact on the communities that you serve.
Thank
Um,
you.
yeah, it's fantastic. I'm going to ask if you can share, in all of your experiences, any significant achievements in your journey as a Black-owned speech language pathologist, anything you'd like to highlight, if there were specific challenges that you had to overcome, specific to, being a Black business owner.
Sure. And I should clarify as well, there are 2 married couples that have owned all companies. So I consider us to be a Black-owned business, but I do also need to give kudos to the people that have been my business partners since the beginning, one of whom I happen to be married to. Um, It's interesting because I think that we talk a lot about intersectionality right now. And there was intersectionality between being a female and also a Black female who happened to be the CEO of a company. We actually went to a bank, contract in hand. We had a government contract, and it doesn't get more guaranteed or more stable than that. And the banker kept, so my husband was in the room, my business partner and her husband, didn't look at me. She would ask all of the questions to my husband, some of the questions to Yvonne, my business partner's husband, but never once, looked at me. And I remember my husband saying, Cindy is the president. She's the CEO. She's the speech pathologist. That would be a good question for her. And she would redirect it back to him. And he finally said, I don't know how to say this. I'm not the person you should be talking to. And so in that instance, I thought, well, it's either that I'm female, could be that I'm female and Black. I don't really care what it is. I wasn't present in that room.
Right.
And it was, we had a contract in hand. I was the clinician. My husband is not a therapist. And she was a female. So I suspect it wasn't necessarily because we were female. And she just completely disregarded me. And I remember thinking, I didn't really want to think a lot about the reasons why, because I feel like anyone who's an entrepreneur, whether you're a speech pathologist or in high tech or in retail, you have to have a little bit of a maverick mindset. And that is, I know where I want to go. I need you. So if you're going to say no, I'm not going to focus on why you're saying no. I need to find the person that's going to get me to yes. So,
Right.
there was also another situation where I was standing in the office, and a courier came in and he said to me, I'd like to speak to your boss. And I remember thinking, huh, that's an interesting comment. Again, I didn't really spend a lot of time thinking about why, because honestly, that sort of thing happens all the time.
Yes.
So I think that, a little less so now, and I'll talk a little bit later in our time together about being intentional about the decisions we make and being intentional about the support of the Black community.
Yes. Thank you so much. Those two experiences are, very relatable. I will say that.
Oh, yeah.
As a Black female, and clinician, they're very relatable. Unfortunate, we'll say it, call it what it is. They are unfortunate, um, but true and need to be spoken about. Our viewers need to hear it. We need to be able to share
Mhm,
amongst each other to have the understanding that these things that occur are not right. They are seen,
mhm.
they are felt, right? But they don't stop us. And so I really like how you couch that, right? That you do have to take that maverick approach. They won't stop you from
Yeah.
what you know to be true about yourself and your passion, right? And that's very evident in the work that your accomplishments.
Thank you. And there's also a story on the flip side of that. And this has stayed with me. I still remember this gentleman's face. And I met with this gentleman, and he said to me, You are the first person that looks like my family. You're the first person where I feel like my son can experience getting treatment from someone who looks like him. And so it also happens on the other side where you realize there's such a need
Yeah.
in the Black, not just the Black community, but racialized communities, underestimated communities, where, I think as a society, we have to be mindful of the opportunities that racialized individuals or individuals from underestimated communities have to receive services from people who look like them, from people who understand
Yes.
their community. And we've got a long way to go.
We do, but I do hope that conversations like this one that we're having today, will propel us forward in the right direction. And I think they will.
Mhm.
Um, Thank you for adding that. I really do appreciate it because you're so right. The people that we serve are so integral to, our motivation for what we do. And you're right, having those success stories, that bit of feedback where you are able to hear from your client, you know what, you've made a huge difference for me. in whatever personal way that can happen, right?
Mhm.
Um, I too relate to that. I do. I'm going to move to the next question for you,
Yeah.
Cindy. Okay. And so you've been able to give us some reflections on your experiences, and I really appreciate it. Um, what advice would you give to an aspiring Black professional who's pursuing a career, whether it's in speech or in audiology, emphasizing, the resilience and the perseverance? And you spoke a bit about that, in your in your reflections about the obstacles that you've been able to overcome. But what advice would you give to a clinician who wants to start their own practice?
So I think one piece of advice would be if you don't know, find someone who does. I know that speech pathologists anyway, I've been at it for a long time. So way back when I was in graduate school, we learned nothing about opening a business. We learned nothing about marketing, business development, those sorts of things. And so if you don't know, I would say find someone that can give you those answers. I'd
Mhm.
also say look for a mentor. I'll talk a little bit about something that my brother, Mark Harrison, started, the Black Talent Initiative, that really focuses on collaboration and mentorship as a way of supporting Black talent in the industry. And so I would say, find a mentor. If you can, find a mentor, another mentor who is a Black speech language pathologist or audiologist. I'm happy to take that role because I think that it's really important that we encourage people to do that. And I would also say, get comfortable with the maverick mindset. If somebody tells me I can't do something, I'm just going to have to find a way to do it because that's the only way that we can become established. That's the only way that you can survive. And as you know, as a private practice owner, it's not always easy. There can be late nights when there's a problem. It's your problem to solve. And welcome to the world of accounts receivable and insurance companies and all of those sorts of things. So it is so worth it, but find yourself a community, find yourself a mentor and someone that knows what you're going through. And if you can find yourself a Black mentor, all the better.
Yeah, thank you. I agree. I agree with your advice, with your jewels that you're giving, and they certainly are from someone who has lived it and has gone through it. So thank you so much for offering that to our viewers. I really appreciate that. Now you touched on, an initiative that you'd like to speak about, and I think that's really great because my next question really is around learning from you if there is a specific initiative or a project within whether it's ACT or that stems out of KMR or communicare therapy that not only provides, your quality speech services, but also contributes to the broader narrative of Black excellence and empowerment in healthcare.
So, one of the things that really troubles me, when we had the conversation that we had today, when
Mm,
we met on the telephone for the first time, the
mhm,
question that I asked myself is, how many Black-owned practices are there? I would hazard a guess that there aren't a lot. And
right.
so, I think it can be difficult to find your community of practice. And I'm glad we've connected. Maybe there's something that we could encourage SAC to do to bring together or create a collaborative space where Black-owned businesses, and it doesn't have to stop there, underestimated communities, racialized communities, can come together and support each other. So I think there's an initiative yet to be created. And like we're not busy enough, but maybe that's something we could think about. And,
Yes.
it does make me think about my brother Mark started something called the Black Talent Initiative.
Okay.
If you Google Black Talent Initiative, it will come up. And their mandate, if you will, is to collaborate with allies of Black-owned businesses and Black-owned businesses to provide opportunities for Black individuals, Black talent. And then they also bring people together to establish a network of mentors. And I think that that is so essential because there could be someone out there that said, I'd really love to do that, but I am just not confident. And so if there's an opportunity for someone like you, someone like me, some of our colleagues, some of the people that you're going to be speaking to for this initiative, I think that would be great. So I would encourage SAC to provide that opportunity or to support that opportunity so that we could move something like that forward.
Thank you so much for highlighting that, because that's a resource, right, that you're giving to our viewers. You're right, Google it, take a look, right? For Black talent, please Google it. Say that one more time for our viewers again.
Sure. It's called the Black Talent Initiative. So if you Googled or BTI,
Okay.
my brother's going to say, why didn't you pull the website up? But it will come up, or you Google BTI Mark Harrison and it will come up. And also as a speech pathologist, I actually volunteered my time to allow or to facilitate rather, to help an organization that was interested in offering a job to a young Black person who identifies as neurodiverse and or neurodiverse and autistic. And so I helped to provide some support around communication for this individual. Email was better than an in-person meeting and so on and so forth. And he actually fired me quite a while ago. He's well on his own, doesn't need me anymore. But it was really an honor to be able to address that intersectionality of being young, Black, and neurodivergent, and really working to provide an opportunity for him to succeed. And he did 99.9% of the work. I was just along to help whenever he needed it. It was really lovely.
I chuckle because isn't that what the best thing, when you can, I always say, one of my sayings is that, you've done an effective job as a leader when you can stand back, you can step away from the work and
Right.
it will run on its own. And the same thing with our clients, right? When you said that, he fired you, I think that's fantastic, right? In every sense of the word, in a positive sense, where he's independent with the tools you've given him, with the strategies that you've given him, that he can own it and go
Right.
forward. And that's fantastic. That's what we want for our clients.
And in a typical world, he would be what some call the furthest from employment because of the being neurodivergent,
Right.
because of and not being well understood, because of being Black, and because of being young and not having a lot of opportunities. And he's thriving.
That's
His employer loves him. He loves his employer, and it's just a win-win all around.
that's fantastic. Beautiful story. So, Cindy, I'm at my final question, but I have to ask, what's next? What's next for you, Cindy? What's next, or any exciting new aspirations for ACT or for KMAR or for Communicare? Anything that we can look forward to
Oh,
in the
thanks for asking that question. So I think I'd say two things. ACT, we're always looking for ways that we can help people who might be furthest from employment, for example. And one of the real gaps we see is a huge degree of unemployment in the neurodivergent community. And so I would say that's what's next. I can just hear my husband going, really? Next? Like, it's not retirement. It's not retirement, honey. And so I'm really very interested in the intersectionality of neurodivergence and race and employment. And so for me, and I've been like this since the very beginning of my career, I've always been interested in the more complex presentation, the clients that are that I sort of take home and I think about and I mull over, and just not straightforward. And so I think that's what's next for me in terms of ACT. Whether or not that will be a small project, a large project, I always like to think big. And we have applied for we've written some RFPs for some funding. So we'll see what happens with that. But I don't usually take no well for an answer. So I'm sure if that doesn't work out, I'll be thinking about the next opportunity. And I think more importantly, what's next? I'm much closer to the end of my career than I am to the beginning. And I think that what's next is I'd love to see more Black-owned businesses in private practice, in home and community care, in the autism treatment space. And I would really hope that universities don't just look at their own diversity, equity, and inclusion and justice policies, but really work to ensure that the students that they're admitting to graduate school are representative of the community that they're going to serve. And so for me, what I hope is next are more Black speech pathologists and audiologists deciding to do what you've done and make their mark on the profession by opening their own businesses.
Thank you so much, Cindy. I'm enthralled, by our conversation. I really am. I'm thankful to have met you, and great, I'm thankful for this opportunity that we've created,
Mhm.
to be able to connect. Everything that you've shared today just really resonates in your commitment to the children and adults that you've committed to serving over the years. The work that you're leading at ACT is certainly commendable. The work that you're leading at Kmart and Communicare is phenomenal. The many jewels that you've given us this interview, I'm really hoping that our viewers will really see it as gold and benefit from everything that you've shared with us. And so I just want to thank you. I want to say thank you so much, on behalf of the Honest Clinic as well as SAC, for joining me in this interview, this time together.
And thank you. I have enjoyed it as well. And I think that this may not be the last time we speak to one another. I think we have some work ahead of us,
I
and I'll look forward to doing that with you.
Well, that's all for this episode. Thank you for joining us at the Honest Clinic. You can find us online at thehonestclinic.com or follow us on the gram, and look out for future interviews on our YouTube channel. Until next time, take good care.